Hello and welcome back to this channel. Today we will talk about 5 bad habits when learning a language, what they exactly are, how to avoid them, and I want to challenge you to ask yourself if you're currently engaging in these habits. And if you're just starting off with a new language, then even better, because you can make sure that you will not fall into these pitfalls. So now let's start with number 1. Procrastination. I think we can all relate with this feeling in any domain of our lives. The thing is, if you study languages at home, you don't have the structure which a course gives you. So you have to create the structure for yourself. And this is quite hard because, as you know, a lot of things are going on in our lives and it's hard to find the time for a voluntary activity like learning languages. So if you don't have a concrete plan, then you will not make any progress or very slow progress. So now I will talk about some tools you can use. Number 1 is create an implementation intention. This means just to declare to yourself when you will study the language and where and with whom, if you do it in an activity with friends, for example. So this could mean every Monday from 7 p.m. to 7:30, I will study the language. This at least gives you the time frame. Now, to make it even more concrete, because what does study the language mean? You can reduce the abstractiveness by, for example, writing already out the exercise you will be doing, be it listening, writing, or speaking. And this connects back to the video I made about using ChatGPT to create a language learning plan, which is linked over here. This is the biggest hurdle, I think. Secondly, breaking down language learning. So you can create some milestones to know, okay, this week I want to reach these points, and this really helps. Thirdly, as I've said, if you can combine it with activities with friends, it's also very helpful because then it's maybe more fun, more engaging, and it creates a bit more accountability. So to reduce procrastination, be more specific about when you do it, where you do it, and what the goal of the study session is. And this reduces the, I don't feel like studying languages, and makes sure that you have the plan, you see, did I do it or not? And if you didn't do it, then ask yourself, why didn't you do it? What was the problem? Did you don't have the time? Or was there some other measure, maybe too abstract? You still didn't know, how do I actually start? So this is really important. The second bad habit is relying too much on translation. This means just taking sentences out of your language, putting them in the translator, and then having the translated version, which might not really correspond to the language spoken in real life, or maybe not the structure which is actually used. To avoid this, try to not always go with the reflex of trying to translate directly. So maybe the clues from the sentence can help, or you can use multimedia. So you can listen more to podcasts, read more books, and watch more movies, so that you really get a feel for the language which is spoken, the structure, and slowly but surely you will get a feel for how the sentences are phrased and will not rely on the structure which is given to you on your head from your native tongue. The third bad habit is connected to the first one. The first one was procrastination. Now the third one is a result of procrastination. If you procrastinate, you don't make progress consistently. So the third one is a lack of consistency. And the solution is building consistency. But how do we do this? This means you have to have a regular practice where you're sure you're actually following the practice. But how do you do this? You do it by, as I mentioned before, having regular hours and also tracking it or having a goal. So for example, to avoid, being too ambitious, let's say, I will learn the language every day now, so 7 days a week. You should start small, because this is with habits always important. Small could mean I study the languages 3 times a week for 15 minutes. And you will check it off either on paper or in Notion or another digital platform. I will also link below my page for habit tracking, because it gives you accountability and it gives you also feedback. So if you cross it 3 times a week, for example, for 1 week, then you can say, I did what I wanted to do, and start the next week with more momentum. And this hopefully then creates more momentum and you actually enjoy it also more because you make progress. So this is also helpful to shift from I study only when I feel like it to making consistently progress and realistically. Yeah. So follow these tips and let's give me some feedback how it went for you. The next habit is trying to always be perfect, reaching perfection. And this hinders a lot of different progress areas. For example, when speaking, obviously in the beginning you can't speak perfect. So instead of trying to be perfectly prepared for the first conversation, you can either use the Gliglish tool, so the AI tool for speaking, without also having the fear that you are criticized because it's an AI tool, or you can just dive deep into the first conversation with a native and be completely fine with making mistakes and see also after making mistakes that it's no problem and it's normal. It's good because it gives you feedback in the areas where you might still need to improve. Secondly, perfection can also mean that you feel maybe bad if you wanted to study the language 4 times a week but only did it twice, because in the end, if you did it before only 1 time a week or even not at all, then 2 is better than 0. So you should be focusing on progress instead of perfection. So number 5, even though we know that there are different components when learning a language, like listening, writing, so writing text, learning vocabulary, or speaking, we know the most important component is speaking, because in the end, this is what we want to be able to do. And often, as I said before, we don't feel ready for it because maybe we want to be perfect in our first conversation. And this you should really avoid. So try to start speaking from the beginning on. This does not mean with another person, but also just speak to try to practice your pronunciation when listening to a podcast, for example, or you just start with very easy conversations, either online with others, with AI, or in person, which is even better with natives. So really try to begin speaking from the beginning, and this will also show you that you will feel much more comfortable, because if you only learn the vocabulary and grammar and everything, but have not really got used to how words are pronounced and practice, because practice makes perfect, we all know, but often we forget it when thinking about speaking a language. So I hope that you will use this last tip as well. So now that we've covered the 5 biggest mistakes that I think you can make when learning a language, I'm still curious what you think are other minor mistakes you can make, or even big mistakes. And give me feedback how the tips worked for you. I'm really curious, and I'm looking to see you again in the next video. Until then, feel free to subscribe to this channel to continue follow me on the journey of language learning.